Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very special audio presentation. I am Benjamin Naeem here with all of you for what we are calling the Faceoff Circle. And with me on this evening, June 2nd, 2014, I have found myself probably the most perfect co-host for this audio transmission. He is from north of the border. He is Canadian. And so, I mean, if you're going to do a hockey podcast, then who better to bring on than a Canadian? So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together, stand up. I don't care if you're in public right now. You will stand up and you will give this man a very warm reception. You will clap. You will give him a standing ovation. This is Sir Peter H.
How's everybody doing? Dan, it's been a while since I've spoken to you, and now I know who to ask for if I ever need someone to do my eulogy.
Well, I'm honored.
Well, it's going to be a great Stanley Cup series we're going to talk about, and I do want to mention this is a co-production of both Super Friends Universe and the Angry Marks Network.
A combination of two of the greatest websites of all time. And, Pete, I did need to ask you real quick, first of all, how are you doing tonight? It's a warm evening here in Florida. I don't know how it is over up there in Canada, but how you doing?
Well, where I am, it's actually a little bit warmer than usual. I think we broke a record. It was 32 degrees, 33 degrees Celsius. It hasn't been this warm in 30 years.
Damn.
So we're talking about 30 is about, in America, probably about 100 or 95 Fahrenheit, I believe.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and it's only June 2nd, so.
All right. Well, we're going to heat it up even more by talking about hockey. Okay, that made no sense. But anyway, I'm horrible at segues. Let's talk about this Stanley. We're here to talk about the Stanley Cup Final. We're going to preview it for all of you listening this evening, and it's the Los Angeles Kings against the New York Rangers. My personal nightmare when it comes to a Stanley Cup Final. I strongly detest both teams, and you know it's an interesting matchup. But as a fan, I'm not happy with what ended up happening in the final. How about you?
Well, I actually was going for LA to win. I was hoping they would have beat Chicago. 7 games. The Kings are the first team to win 3 Game 7s on the road in a single playoff season. And, I just thought they would have won their series in 6 games. I'm really nervous when it comes to Game 7s because anything can happen, especially in hockey. And, doing my research for this show, the first time the LA Kings won the Stanley Cup, I believe they beat your New Jersey Devils there.
Yes, unfortunately.
But,
and there were circumstances that led to that, but that was a much closer series than it looked on paper. And a 5-minute major penalty is what really sealed the deal for LA. If you look back at Game 6, but what I want to do on this podcast is I want to look at we're gonna look at the LA Kings road to the final. We're going to look at the New York Rangers road to the final, and then at the very end of the show, we will give our official prediction for who we think is going to win and how many games it's going to take. But I think it's interesting to look at both teams, both squads, and sort of look at what they had to go through to get to this final. The New York Rangers haven't been here in, 20 years? It's been a long time since they've seen success in the postseason. But what we're going to do is we're going to start things off from the L.A. side, and then we'll look at things, over with New York. So we'll start things off with L.A. We'll look at how they came to the finals. Obviously, they went through some very talented hockey clubs, Pete. They beat the San Jose Sharks, came back from being down 3-0 to defeat San Jose in the first round. Then they went on to defeat Anaheim and, of course, most recently, Game 7 against Chicago. So what do you think about LA's road to the final? Hasn't it been incredible? They beat 3 really great teams, including the defending Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah, I mean, in the first round, upsets happen. And when you're down 3-0, a lot of riders wrote them off, but they had the goaltending, they had the defense, they had a whole bunch of different factors going for them, and in some cases they were lucky, but to be lucky you got to be good. So, when it comes to the LA Kings, especially in that series early on, against the Ducks and against the the Blues there. The Sharks. It's one of those things where a lot of people on the East Coast really didn't have a chance to watch that series because of the late start times, and especially a couple of those games going to overtime, especially the Anaheim series, when I believe one of them went to double overtime. It's one of those things where this team is battle-tested night in, night out, and look up gritty hockey teams, and there's a photo of this team from this year.
And you have to also, you're absolutely right about that, and you also have to mention again the resiliency of this squad. I mean, it looked like they were down and out against LA. They came back again against San Jose to be down 3-0 and win 4 straight. That's incredible. And if you look at it from a San Jose perspective, I mean, that's got to be a team that I would blow up if I was the general manager, because it's just year after year, disappointment after disappointment in the playoffs. But that's a whole other discussion for a whole other day. I would say LA has had the toughest out of the two teams. Wouldn't you say LA has had a tougher road to the final than New York?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got to look at LA playing in so many elimination games, and they're at the finals. I mean, their goaltending is top notch, and you have to start at goaltender with Jonathan Quick. I believe he played for Team USA at the Olympics, and you guys didn't win the gold there, but he did put in a solid performance for Team USA in the Olympic tournament. Didn't win a medal, but there's a reason why you're an Olympic goalie. You're that good, and I think he took the Olympic experience as motivation and led his team to the finals. But there are other Olympians on the Kings, but you got to start with goaltending, especially in the Stanley Cup Finals.
And from the LA side of things, the one thing that LA has that I think New York doesn't is depth, especially up front. Look at some of their top players, of course, Jeff Carter, Dustin Brown, Marian Gaborik has lit it up in the playoffs this year. Ante Kopitar is the best two-way forward, arguably, defensive center in the NHL. And then you had some surprises. Tanner Pearson, who, again, as a Devils fan, this guy, Tanner Pearson, was chosen 30th overall the year that the Kings won the Stanley Cup. And who had the 29th pick that year? Of course, it was my New Jersey Devils, and they ended up picking Stefan Matteau, which is totally not a bad pick. But then you look at this kid, Tanner Pearson. He's come in and he's just lit it up as a 21-year-old in the playoffs. Mike Richards, of course. Justin Williams is a solid winger. When you look at this LA Kings forward corps, you have to be impressed, especially with the depth.
Oh, absolutely. You got to start with Gaborik leading the NHL playoffs in goals. It's one of those things where Justin Williams, he's Mr. Game 7. He had 7 goals and 7 assists in 7 Game 7s. He is Mr. Clutch.
A lot of sevens.
Yeah, he actually broke the record for most points in Game 7s alone by that last Game 7 in Chicago. He is Mr. Clutch. And in the playoffs, you need a Justin Williams. But there are some other players on the Kings that I'm very happy to see them stepping up to the plate there. You mentioned all of them on my list for forwards. But there is another player that if you're talking about just the general roster for the LA Kings, you got to talk about a rookie. Not a rookie, but I think he's a rookie. He plays junior hockey right here in Ottawa, and that's Tyler Toffoli.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing that I don't want to say love, but I want to point out about this Kings roster is their size. I mean, everybody. Yeah. I think every forward, other than Mike Richards, is at least 6 feet 1 inch tall. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The size is there. But, I mean, this is the old argument where, the rule changes that happened, I think it was in 2002, giving the smaller teams a chance to, basically it was a big man league at one point. And then you get the smaller players with the skill to match up against the bigger players. So you have the Chicago Blackhawks, you have the LA Kings, you have teams that don't have the big tough guys up front, but they got the skilled guys behind it. But now you're seeing a hybrid of both big guys and small guy mentality. And, Dustin Brown, Marian Gaborik, and Kopitar. These guys are talented, but they can also get dirty as well.
All right, so we're gonna go through the rosters for both teams, and then, like I said, we will do a comparison for both squads and really get into it. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, let's talk about the Kings defensively. They have the best defenseman in the NHL on their roster, in my opinion, Drew Doughty. He's incredible.
And the scary thing is, he wasn't even one of the 3 nominees for top defenseman of the year.
Exactly. And they have a lot of, it's just, again, the depth of the squad on both sides of the puck. Slava Voinov, he's a good youngster. I even like Robin Regehr. I know he's not a flashy player, but he's big. He can hit. He's physical. Another youngster, Braden McNabb, he's got size. He can move the puck.
You got to think about Regehr, though. He is injured right now. He's not going to be – he probably won't be around for game 1. If he is, it'll be a game-time decision. But Regehr is hurt. And you got to think, if he comes back in game 2 or game 3, it gives the Kings a little extra boost.
Alec Martinez is another player that I've been impressed with. What do you think about the Kings on defense?
Yeah, the Kings, I like Slava Voinov, sorry. He really impressed me this year. Alex Martinez doesn't exactly get the minutes that other defensemen get for the Kings, but he definitely, he was the star of the game in Chicago, winning the game for the LA Kings. It's those guys, when it comes to playoff hockey, and I've said this over and over again, it's not so much the stars that are going to win the game for you night in, night out. Sometimes you're going to have guys like an Alex Martinez who are going to be the hero because you're not expecting them to score. Look at Dave Bolden's the Chicago Blackhawks. He wasn't a top-tier player, but he ended up getting the Stanley Cup winning goal for them that year.
Let's talk about the goaltending. Jonathan Quick, how do you evaluate his performance so far in the postseason?
Oh, man. If he there's a really interesting stat I saw today, and that is Jonathan Quick has never played at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
And you got to think the bright lights. Everybody here, I'm not sure in the States, up here in Canada, everyone's calling it Broadway versus Hollywood, what they call it in the series, right? He's going to be in the bright lights, Game 3, Madison Square Garden, and he's overcome so much this season alone in the playoffs that I don't think playing in Madison Square Garden for the first time is going to faze him too much. But I said before, the Stanley Cup season, the playoff season, I should say, it begins and ends in goaltending. And Jonathan Quick definitely deserves consideration, in my opinion, for the Conn Smythe, goaltending his team in 3-game 7 to bring him to the finals. He definitely will get some Conn Smythe considerations for playoff MVP. But, and if you're looking goalie versus goalie, the Rangers have a good goalie as well, a very good goalie. So it's going to be a very tight comparison there for sure.
Yeah, no doubt, and we will get to the comparisons in a second. Now we're gonna switch over to the New York Rangers side. Let's look at how they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. They ended up defeating a Philadelphia Flyers team in round 1. Then they took a Pittsburgh Penguins squad, and again they had a comeback of their own. They were down 3-1 in that series, came back, defeated Pittsburgh in 7 games, and then of course most recently in the Eastern Conference Final, defeating Montreal Canadiens. A Dustin Tokarski-led team in goal was not enough to overcome the New York Rangers, and so Montreal was gone. They stretched it out to 6 games, so Montreal they went down kicking and screaming. It's not like they rolled over. But what do you make of the Rangers' path to the Stanley Cup Final? I think much easier, especially when you look at the goaltenders that they faced compared to the goaltenders LA has faced. Philly, Steve Mason, okay, he's fine, but Pittsburgh had Marc-Andre Fleury. He's usually shaky in the playoffs. And, again, Montreal, like I just said, they lost Carey Price in their series. So New York got a break, I think, when it comes to their matchups. And that's not just Devils bias. I'm calling this as down the middle as I possibly can here, Pete.
Yeah, you said before, this is a nightmare of a series where I understand that completely, being a Leaf fan and watching the Habs march in the playoffs. So I hear you, bud.
So what do you think about this Rangers path to the final?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Flyers, yeah, they have some weapons, but, the Rangers took care of them. That Montreal-New York series, I'm skipping over the first series there with Pittsburgh. I'll get there in a second. But I want to talk about the Montreal series. How about Dustin Tokarski? At the beginning of that series, Rangers-Habs, when Carey Price was healthy, it was a pick-em series. When Price got hurt, when the Ranger player collided into him, skates up basically, took him out of a knee injury, there's rumors he's going to have surgery, might not have surgery. It's up in the air right now. But when Tokarski came in, Tokarski is the future of the Montreal Canadiens. I feel bad for the backup for Montreal because he came in that game, didn't do too well, got scored on a couple of times, and sat on the bench the rest of the way. So
poor Peter Budaj. Poor Peter Budaj. I just wanted to interrupt real quick. I wanted to ask you. You mentioned about how Carey Price got hurt. I needed to get your opinion on this real quick before we moved on to anything. When Chris Kreider slammed into Carey Price, there were players on Montreal and people in the media that were unhappy with what Kreider did. Do you blame him at all for hurting Price? Do you think he could have done anything different when he slid into him, or do you just call it a freak accident?
Well, there's two ways you can look at this. One, if it was an isolated incident, it's the first time he's ever done this, you give him a pass. You look at the replays, it looks like he might have had a moment or two where he could have pulled up or turned away at the last second, maybe, but at that speed, at real life, it's a boom-boom play. It's really hard to give him blame. However, this isn't the first time he's done this to a goalie. He did this to Fleury in the previous series. So I think there should have been some more discipline on his part and on the league's part. But, sometimes it just happens. A hockey injury happens, right? So it'd be very interesting if he crashes into Jonathan Quick, and we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, then it'll look a little deliberate. But anyway, go ahead. You were talking about Rangers' path to the Cup before I interrupted you.
Yeah, you go back to the Rangers-Penguins series. If they can overcome, the duo of Malkin and Crosby in the playoffs, I just think, when it comes to Crosby, I'm not the biggest Crosby fan. I think he was worn out from the Olympic experience. I think he was running on empty. Malkin, they didn't go far in the Olympic tournament, but I think there's one team that might get blown up in the offseason. We got the trade deadline, the NHL draft. I think Pittsburgh, if they didn't win the Cup this year, it was Cup or bust for them. And I think when New York had them on the ropes, the Penguins already in their minds were already thinking about what time is tee-off time. What time do we have to clean up the lockers? Their mind wasn't in that last game. Going on to Montreal, once Tokarski came in, Tokarski, you name it, he's won it in junior, World Championships, Memorial Cup. He's been there. He's done that. He's the future of that franchise. I think if you listen to myself and the Stevie J at AngryMarks.com and do the MMA podcast, Go Up or Shut Up, there's an infamous saying we sometimes say where you learn more from a loss than a victory. I think Tokarski will take this experience in this year's playoffs and come back with a fervor in the next couple of years and really be a dominant goaltender. As far as the series goes, with the Rangers and the Habs, that Game 7 was very telling. I think the New York Rangers looked tired. It was a 1-0 game in the Game 7. They were basically throwing everything at both goals.
Game 6.
Was scored.
Game 6.
Game 6, sorry, yeah. But you got to think, Rangers had a couple days to rest. It felt like a Game 7, Ben. That's why I thought it was a Game 7.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But they looked tired. You look at the Game 7 we just had with the Kings and the Blackhawks. There were so many different goals, in the first period, second period. I said at the same time as Bob Cole, what is going on here? Because it was just craziness. You go back to the New York-Montreal series, and it was just like pins and needles for 60 minutes, 1-0, and that goal that was scored was, the only mistake really in the entire game for Montreal. Montreal will come back, but I think New York really left everything on the ice, and I wonder what kind of effort they're going to have in Game 1, how much gas is left in their tank when it comes to Stanley Cup Game 1 Wednesday night in LA. Only time will tell what's going to happen there, because if they come out and they come out flat, it'll be a very short series.
Look at the Rangers roster real quick. We'll start with their forwards. They're not as deep down the middle as LA, but they obviously have depth and they have talent. And the one thing about the Rangers is that they have speed. I think LA is that big, hulking, we're going to grind you down team, but I give New York a speed advantage. They have a couple of really good speedy players. The guy that ran into Carey Price, of course, Chris Kreider. They have Carl Hagelin is a very fast player. Great talent on this squad, and obviously the big one is Martin St. Louis, who got traded from Tampa Bay. What I think that was a situation where he wanted out of Tampa, and I don't know if him not being chosen for the Olympics by his own general manager had something to do with it, but definitely something to think about there. Brad Richards, he's had a bounce back year. Rick Nash, he's been a little disappointing for me in the playoffs. I feel like this is a guy he's 6'4", he's 213 pounds. I don't think he uses his body enough. That's just my opinion. But I look at this Rangers roster. I see a team that is very, very talented. Derek Stepan, I should say, a guy that is hurt, but he's still kicking. He's still playing. And obviously Matt Zuccarello, who was a steal by this Rangers team. They picked him up a couple of years ago after the Olympics. And he's been an absolute steal. So the Rangers, I think, they've done a really good job over the last couple of years of getting themselves some depth. I used to think that they were a top-heavy team, but then they made a couple of trades. Once they traded Marian Gaborik to Columbus and brought in Derek Brassard and John Moore and guys like that, it really rounded out this squad. And I think that trade, it was a big, big catalyst for what we're seeing here and why the Rangers have made it this far in the playoffs. But what do you make of their forward group?
Yeah, I think it starts and ends with Martin St. Louis. He's had one incredible year. The highs, the lows, the finals. I mean, that roller coaster ride he is on, for the next 2 weeks, it's like the last lap. Right wing for the Rangers, they're very deep at that position with St. Louis, Zuccarello, and Dorsett. You go to the left wing position, they got Kreider, Hagelin, Puyo. Brian Boyle, former LA King, now playing for the Rangers. And you got to think Gaborik used to be a Ranger, now he's a King. So you got that kind of dynamic going on, pretty funny. Brad Richards, it's kind of cool seeing St. Louis and Richards on the same team going for another Stanley Cup. They won it back with Tampa Bay a couple of years ago, which is kind of cool. Now they're going for another one. I think that when they got St. Louis, when Steve Eisenman pulled the trigger on that deal, that basically really confirmed contender status on the New York Rangers. It's just one of those things. They're the scary thing about the Rangers, it's not their first line or the second line that's dangerous. It's actually their third line with Brassard, Zuccarello, and Puyo. Those guys can really surprise you, especially late in the season when you really focus on the top guns of the Rangers. That the third line might steal the show for one of the games here.
I mean, that's what the Rangers, again, like I said, this Rangers squad, I have to give credit to their management. Everybody loves to make fun of Rangers general manager Glenn Sather for being a shit general manager, but over the last couple of years, he's done a really good job of getting this team some depth. I used to always think, Rangers, they're top-heavy. They got a couple of stars, but nothing. But then you look at this squad, and, again, you talked about that third line, Benoit Pouliot. He's been great for this team. And it's just the speed. You know what I mean? They have so much speed on this hockey club, and it's one of the main reasons why they're here. Defensively? Go ahead. Sorry.
We're not talking about one of the other Ranger forwards who's currently serving a suspension. Former LA King that got acquired by the Rangers this season, Daniel Carcillo.
Exactly. Forgot about him.
He won't be back, but it's kind of weird that a former King won't be there to play his former team in the finals because, he's an idiot.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I saw something like that coming. Carcillo, he's, not my favorite player, to say the least. But again, I'm trying to be unbiased here.
Pardon my French there, but he's a shit disturber.
Now let's look at the Rangers defensively. This is a very impressive squad on defense. I really like what they have. Dan Girardi is a fantastic defenseman. Not flashy, but he's so good on D. It's so hard to get past him. Ryan McDonough, I'm telling you right now, he's going to be one of the best defensemen in the league. And I don't know what Montreal was like smoking when they got rid of him, but I really, really like him. John Moore's another good two-way defenseman. Mark Stahl, again, one of the best that the NHL has to offer. And somebody that, as a Devils fan, it hurts me to say this, Pete, Anton Stralman. And the reason why this hurts me as a New Jersey Devils fan was because this is a guy that was part of a New Jersey Devils training camp, and they let him go. And that very season, Stralman ended up thriving with the Rangers. So I love this team defensively. They are very talented.
Absolutely. We talked about John Moore. He's been out for the last 2 games after hitting the head of Dale Weiss and actually gave Weiss a concussion, we found out. I saw it was reported today that Weiss ended up with a concussion and still played Game 6 when really he shouldn't have. But John Moore a little bit rested, and I'm sure defensemen really appreciate a 2-game rest after a long playoff. So Moore's going to be a little bit well-rested. You got to think Rafael Diaz as well and Kevin Klein rounding out the Rangers D. They're going to get some significant ice time, but you're right. McDonough and Girardi are the 2 main defensemen, and Stallman as well. But one stat I did see is that Dan Girardi leads the Rangers with 50 blocked shots.
That's just incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Like I said, he's a rock defensively and very reliable.
Yeah, I mean, you look at how hockey players are, basketball player, I sprained my finger, I got to sit out. This guy will stand in front of a shot at 100 miles an hour, get fresh stitches, and come on for his next shift.
Yeah. I'm telling you, the Rangers are one of the stingiest teams defensively, and one of the main reasons for that, yes, they have good top 4 defensemen. And I talked about Ryan McDonough. He's going to be one of the best in the league very, very soon. But we haven't even reached the goaltending yet. And I think Henrik Lundqvist is the best in the NHL. I would rank him as the best goaltender in the world right now. I am not a proponent of his style, as you may have noticed on Facebook. I don't agree with the way he plays, but I will be the first one to tell you he is the best goaltender in the world today. Even though I don't like the way he plays, I will readily admit he's the best in the world right now, and without Lundqvist, the Rangers wouldn't be where they are at. There is no doubt about it in my mind.
I think when it comes to the Rangers goaltending, I said before with Jonathan Quick that he is their Conn Smythe candidate here. Lundqvist, same thing. He is their MVP, and you're right, his style, it's not for everybody. I will admit that. But he leads all goalies in the playoffs with a .928 save percentage, and he's second in playoffs with a 2.03 goals against in 20 games. Not 4, not 8, not 16, 20 games, just over 2.0 goals against. Amazing stat there.
Absolutely. I mean, he gets the job done. It's not entertaining for me to watch. I would rather watch a guy like Jonathan Quick who will challenge shots, you know what I mean, who will go out there and he'll attack the puck as opposed to just let it hit him. But the fact of the matter is that this is working for Lundqvist, and it's been his deal his entire career. And like I said, it's made him the best goalie in the world. So I can't knock it. I don't like it, but it's working for him. So until teams can figure out Lundqvist, there's no reason for him to change because, like I said, it's made him who he is today. So that's the Rangers roster, and let's go ahead now. Let's start our comparisons here. And then we'll get to our official prediction.
One more comparison. So before you talk about, this and that, you got to talk about the coaching staff as well for both teams.
Oh, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say Daryl Sutter against Alan Vino. Vino, former coach of the Canucks, there was a running joke last year in the offseason that when was the last time you heard a coach's trade between 2 teams in any sport? With John Tortorella going to the Canucks and Alan Vino going to the Rangers. Kind of ridiculous, but John Tortorella's fingerprints are all over this team, and Vino just sat in the driver's seat and drove this team to the Stanley Cup Finals. Daryl Sutter, what can you say about him? He's won a cup in the Kings before in 2012. He is a no-nonsense coach. Very funny at the press conferences, but this guy is like coaching royalty. And I think when it comes to a coaching standpoint, you got to give the edge to Sutter here. Vino, it must have been weird for Vino coaching the Rangers against Montreal since he started his career at the Montreal Forum with Montreal and to beat them to go to the finals. I'd be a little bit weird, but Vino is definitely a very talented coach. I just think Sutter is 2 notches above him as far as the coach is concerned.
And what a ride for Daryl Sutter, too, over the last couple of years. I mean, he was an ex-Calgary Flames general manager, didn't do jack shit with that organization, and, was let go, and became head coach of this L.A. Kings squad. And look at him now. He's a Stanley Cup champion in 2012. He's back in the finals again. Could possibly win another cup in 2014. So, obviously, this change from GM to head coach has really done wonders for his psyche.
When it comes to Sutter, I think that he's letting the players play. He's not coaching. He's not overcoaching them. He's letting the players play the game. Some coaches, they want to micromanage every whistle, every play. It's kind of refreshing Sutter's approach, and look at the success.
He's an oddball too. I mean, just when you listen to him talk, it's like he's a top 5 coach in the league. It's hard for me to believe it when because he just seems so like weird the way he speaks. But it's true. It works. Whatever it is, it works.
Absolutely. Look at who am I thinking of? Who's the thing about the Kings when it comes to their coaching staff? They have 3 coaches as assistants who used to be head coaches in the NHL. You know what I mean? So there's that leadership. They know what they're doing, and they're in a minor role under Sutter, but every department is excelling as part of an assistant coach for that staff. I think when it comes to the Kings, I think their coaching philosophy is top notch. And Vino, I think he has an uphill struggle. I think his style is a little bit different, but I think he's just driving the John Tortorella car basically, or the bus, and it's not his team per se, but he just basically right place, right time. His coaching philosophy is a little bit different than Tortorella, and it's an intriguing matchup, his style against Sutter's, but you can't take anything away from the Rangers as far as what they've done with the talent they have, and with Stanley being the final piece of that puzzle. It's a very intriguing matchup we have here from every aspect, offense, defense, goaltending, and coaching.
Yeah, of course, Alain Vigneault, like you mentioned a bunch of times, has replaced the controversial John Tortorella. And you keep talking about how, he's taken over. Do you consider yourself to be a Tortorella fan? Do you think that he was let go prematurely by this Rangers squad?
I think he was let go prematurely by the Vancouver Canucks.
Oh, interesting.
For those who don't know, he got let go after 1 year in Vancouver, so be very interesting to see what happens there. Tortorella is a very outspoken manager.
Very, especially against the media.
Oh, yeah. For those hardcore hockey fans that are listening, he reminds me a lot of Mike Keenan.
Yeah. The thing with Tortorella, a lot of people get upset at Tortorella. Yeah, listen, he's kind of a dick, okay? I'm not going to sit here and tell you this guy's like a nice guy. He's kind of an asshole. He doesn't treat the media right. Although, again, when he was in Vancouver, he did vow that he was going to treat them better. But if you look back at what he's done in New York, I mean, the way he talked to some of the, like Sam Rosen, who's like a Rangers, like, diehard media fan, the play-by-play for the Rangers, who just loves the team to death. He asked him a question after a game. He treats him like shit. Tortorella is kind of an asshole. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's a nice guy. But the one thing I like about him, he hates to lose. And as a fan of the sport, when I see a coach after a loss just, you know what, we tried, whatever, especially after a tough loss, doesn't satisfy me as a fan. With Tortorella, you could tell he hates to lose. And I respect that out of him. I really do.
No, you're absolutely right. And what coach likes to lose?
Exactly. Some show it a little more than others, and Tortorella is very upfront about that feeling. He does not like to lose, and he has a very big passion for the game. But anyway, he's not involved in the finals. The Rangers and the Kings are, and let's just compare their rosters real quick before we get into our official predictions and stuff like that. Who do you have? Let's do like advantage. We'll go through each category, and you tell me who has the advantage. We'll start with up front, forward-wise. Who is the more talented team on paper, in your opinion?
Boy, I think because of their depth of players that have reached the finals, you got to go with the Kings by a very small margin. I think the Rangers are very deep at right wing and left wing, but overall, from a forward perspective, you got to give the nod to the LA Kings here.
I agree with you. I think the Rangers have a better fourth line, but the top 9 for LA is it's crazy good. And that team is just built for the playoffs. Again, they're just so big. They're physical. They play a style that suits them perfectly. They play a very, like I said earlier, a very grinding type style. They'll grind you to the board. They're not flashy. They're big and they're physical, and it's going to hurt, playing against this squad. So I would say definitely LA has the advantage up front, just like you said, because of their depth. Defensively,
the majors, though, about their forward line is Derek Stepan when he broke his jaw.
But he will play, right?
He will play. He's wearing a full guard with the padding inside, so he can play with the broken jaw that was reset. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's going to affect his play as well.
Yeah, Stepan, like I said earlier, the guy. I don't know if it's stupid or if it's a lot of heart, but he's playing, and
yeah.
I mean that's how much the cup means.
Broken jaw.
I'm sorry?
I said, in what other sport would you play in the championship finals with a broken freaking jaw?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's
or whatever.
That's how much this championship means to these players here. Defensively, I don't know who's better on D. I mean, I want to say it's tough. I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna let you go first because I really can't pick.
Yeah, it's a very it's a very toss-up category for me because I'm a big Doughty fan, but I also like McDonough for the Rangers. I would have to once again go with the Kings in this one, but I think the margin is just that much smaller than the comparison I made for the Rangers forward line. It's a very close, very razor-thin advantage I'm giving the LA Kings because of Doughty. Basically, he's going to be the best defenseman not to win a trophy this year for top defenseman. I mean, he's taking his style of basically his drive. You really can't measure it, and I think his will to win will really shine in these finals. I think if he has a kick-ass final series, he might get some votes for Conn Smythe as well.
I'm going to say New York, and for one reason. I think that their D is played better than LA. And again, the Rangers have faced easier competition.
Yeah. I would say, the thing about Girardi blocking 50 shots in the playoffs, if he continues that trend of blocking the most shots we've seen this year in the playoffs, it's really hard to get the shots past the defenseman core to score in New York. I mean, it's one of those things where Girardi and McDonough are going to have to basically play the series of their lives to give their team a chance here.
Yeah, totally right about that. And now in net, this is the one that everybody wants to hear about here. It's Jonathan Quick, the best American-born goaltender in the NHL. I think there's no argument there. Against Henrik Lundqvist. Who has the advantage in the net? I say Lundqvist.
I would, before I take my pick there, I don't know if you would give Quick the nod as number one American goalie. I think Ryan Miller would get some votes there, too.
I'm sorry, who?
Ryan Miller.
Oh, Ryan Miller. Okay. All right. I guess you could say that if you want. I mean, I don't think Miller's been I mean, all that impressive the last couple of seasons, but again, he has played on some pretty horrible Buffalo teams, so there is that. But anyway, go ahead.
I would say with Ryan Miller now a free agent because he won't get re-signed in St. Louis, he'll be one of the prize jewels in the off season for goaltenders. For an American goalie, it's Quick and Miller, and Quick definitely he's going to have the weight in his shoulders here. And I might surprise you with my pick. I'm going with Lundqvist. I think he's rested. I honestly think, I said this to a friend of mine on Facebook a couple of days going into Game 5, Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals. I thought both Crawford and Quick were injured, the way they were letting in certain goals. I think there's an injury being reported. And I think Lundqvist, he is going to be, if the Rangers win the Cup, it will be because of Lundqvist. I think because of that, I'm giving him the nod for goaltender in my comparisons here.
Yeah, Lundqvist has just played better. And again, like you were talking about, some of the goals that Jonathan Quick has been allowing, Chicago, he's never had good stats against Chicago. So there is that. But it makes me kind of wonder, how is he going to play in these finals? Is he hurt, or was it just a mental deal? To me, he could bounce back, obviously. We have Quick could bounce back, but to me right now it looks like Lundqvist is any more consistent than the two goaltenders. And he did have one bluff in the Montreal series, but other than that, he's been virtually perfect. So that is the roster comparison. Now we're going to get to the main event here, Pete. Who will win the Stanley Cup in 2014? Will it be the New York Rangers? Will it be the LA Kings? How do you see this series going? And I want your I'm losing my voice here. I want your prediction, and I want the amount of games you think it's going to take before we crown a new champion.
Well, they haven't announced the ticket prices yet for LA, but I do know that for Game 3 and Game 4, ticket prices are starting at like $1,200–$1,300.
Wow. The
reason I bring this up is I'm going to pick the LA Kings to win the Stanley Cup in 6 games in New York, where the projected ticket price for Game 6 at Madison Square Garden in the cheap seats, $3,000.
Unreal. Well, it's been a while since they've gotten here.
It hasn't. It's been the second time in 3 years the Kings are in the finals.
I'm talking about New York.
I know.
You bastard. No, I mean, that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. So you're going to LA in 6.
Yeah.
All right, interesting. Well, you know what? This has been hard. This has been a really hard series. This playoffs have been so unpredictable for me. I really didn't, and this is not bias. I'm being, like I said, I'm trying to be just an analyst here. I didn't see the Rangers going this far, okay, before the playoffs started. They've shocked me. To me, this is a Cinderella run for them. They're a very well-built team, don't get me wrong, but I think that they've benefited a little bit from their matchups and Carey Price maybe going down in Montreal. Maybe that was the difference. We don't know. Tokarski was still very good, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that they're the better team when it comes to them against LA. But before I give my prediction, what team is going to be more tired? LA is coming off a 7-game series against the defending Stanley Cup champions. New York has, ousted Montreal in 6. In terms of fatigue, who do you think has the advantage? Who's the fresher team?
Well, that's a very interesting point you bring up because, yes, LA, 3-game 7s, but the Rangers, the way they play hockey, their style, they've actually come out. I thought in Game 5 against Montreal they were exhausted, and it showed in that game where Rene Bourque scored the hat trick. And I think the gas tank will start to go empty around Game 3, Game 4, and I think they're going to end up becoming a flat team by the time Game 5, Game 6 rolls around. That's why I'm saying 6 games. One other point I wanted to mention was that this is the first time since 1981 that a team from New York has played a team from LA in any major sporting championship series, and that was the World Series when the Dodgers beat the Yankees 40-2.
Wow. Interesting. You're Mr. Stats. Look at you.
Yeah, I bring the A game. What can I say?
You know what? From a rating standpoint, the NHL's got to be very happy with this matchup. That's for sure. So you know what? It's an interesting storyline. If you're from the tri-state area or you care about the teams in the tri-state area, the New Jersey Devils, in 2012, they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, couldn't get the job done against LA, and they lost their first 3 games, which didn't help, and then of course a major penalty sealed their fate, and LA walked away with the championship in 2012. Now the New York Rangers, the Devils' arch rivals, it's their turn. 2014, 2 years later, will they get the job done against LA and forever have bragging rights? The New York media still talks about 1994. If they win the championship in 2014, my prediction is they're going to be talking about it in 2049. So I'm taking shots at them now. This is horrible. I'm sorry. Anyway, I will redeem myself. I did just take shots at the Rangers. But, Ranger fans, if you're listening to this broadcast, I'm picking your team. That's right. I think, and you may call me crazy, I'm saying New York Rangers in 7 games. Why? I don't trust Jonathan Quick to perform better than Henrik Lundqvist. It's as simple as that. Lundqvist is like the goaltender of destiny. The way he's been playing, he is too good to not win a Stanley Cup in his career, and I think this is the year to do it. Martin St. Louis is on this team. They have the speed advantage. They have great defense, and like I said, I think the goaltending is going to be the difference. I think it's going to go 7 games because these two teams are so evenly matched, and I don't see the Rangers doing what New Jersey did in 2012 and getting themselves in a 3-0 hole. But I think both teams, like I said, they're very, very close in terms of talent. New York's offense can be sporadic at times, like you mentioned. But I think in the end of the day, it's going to be Lundqvist that carries this team to a championship. And as much as it pains me to say it, I think it's going to be Rangers in 7.
Oh, that's very crazy, first of all. And, it's one of those things where when it comes to a Game 7, anything can happen. But if this game does go to 7, the LA Kings with the Game 7 experience, can you imagine how loud it will be in LA for Game 7? The ratings, the roof will be blown off that place. It's going to be a crazy night. If this series goes to 7, I just don't see it going 7 games.
I mean, I hope you're right. I do. I hope you're right. I'd like to see, LA get the cup again over New York. I'm just being honest with you. But I just don't trust Quick. You know what I mean? I think he looks very shaky, and a lot of the times when two teams are so evenly matched, it's the goaltending that's going to be the difference. And just Lundqvist, he's too good, and I don't think he's going to run out of gas. So that's just what I think is going to happen. We'll see, though. I think it's going to be a very entertaining series. Again, from a fan standpoint, I don't like both teams, so this is sort of a nightmare scenario for me. But I'm just going to sit back, I'm going to relax, and I'm just going to enjoy the series for what it is. And I think it's going to be great, fantastic hockey.
Absolutely, and we're going to see who wins the Conn Smythe for playoff MVP. I think if the Rangers end up winning, I think you got to give it to Lundqvist. Martin St. Louis might get some consideration after his roller coaster year of being left off Team Canada, then getting on Team Canada as an injury replacement last minute, to making the playoffs, to get traded, to making the playoffs, to, losing his mother, to playing the next night and scoring a goal for her, to now going to the finals. I mean, it's up and down with this guy, and this story has been getting a lot of publicity here in Canada, and it's very interesting to see what will happen if the Rangers do, in fact, win the Cup. For LA, if they win the Cup, which I've predicted, I think you got to give Doughty and Quick some Conn Smythe votes, but I think when it comes to the Kings, a little bit of hometown bias, I think Tyler Toffoli will play a huge part in that.
I like Anze Kopitar for Conn Smythe. I think he's been the most important player for them. Again, just in terms of the way he plays defense. And, the Rangers have a pretty damn good defensive forward themselves, and Brian Boyle, the best penalty killer left in the playoffs, arguably. But anyway, I think Kopitar will get the Conn Smythe if LA wins. And like you said, when it comes to if the Rangers end up winning, you got to go with Lundqvist. I mean, no disrespect to the team in front of us, but Lundqvist is the most important player on that team.
I'd say McDonough for the Rangers as well is a great player.
I'm sorry?
I say McDonough for the Rangers is an excellent player as well. He could probably steal a game or two as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you there. So that's all I have to say about this series. Now we just have to watch it play out. Maybe we'll get back on the air after it's over and sort of do a recap. We'll see. Maybe we'll reunite before finally departing for the off season. But we'll talk about that in private. But Pete, anything else you wanted to talk about here on this very special audio transmission?
Well, I would like to say that there's an interesting bet that happened with both teams, I should say, for the Eastern Conference with the mascot for the Habs, with Jimmy Fallon. If you haven't checked that out, look up Youppi, YOUPPI, and Fallon, hashtag FallonBet. He had to wear the Rangers jersey in Montreal, and he looks like he needs a hug. It's so funny. He had to go to different hot spots in Montreal, including riding the mechanical bull. It was hilarious. You go to the Western Conference Series, they tried to do the same thing with the bet. It involved the LA Kings mascot against CM Punk, and he took a picture outside the Chicago Stadium wearing a Kings jersey. So that was pretty funny. So I think when it comes to social media, it'd be very interesting to see what happens as far as the wagers between the Kings and the Rangers here. But we're in for a hell of a series, and I'm really looking forward to it. Game 1 Wednesday night and Game 2 Saturday night.
Yeah, I did hear about that Punk deal. It's funny that he ended up having to wear that and put it up on his Twitter. But hey, you know what? He's a classy guy when it comes to making, following through on bets. So I got to give that to him. Anything else you wanted to plug before we wrap things up?
Well, just AngryMarks.com. Check out some great shows on there, including Love Up or Shut Up. Myself and Stevie J have been doing the show now for a couple of years now. I think we're going to be taping a show tomorrow night there, talking about what happened this past weekend and talking all the news as well and mixed martial arts. You can listen to the show Wednesday nights on AngryMarks.com.
All right. He is Peter H. He is Canadian, so only appropriate for him to be on this hockey show to get a Canadian perspective on the Stanley Cup Finals. And he is a great man. So make sure to check him out on AngryMarks.com each and every day for all of the great content that he produces. He's very knowledgeable hockey fan, knowledgeable MMA fan. The guy knows everything about everything. He's, in fact, one of the smartest individuals on planet Earth. So don't miss out. Go to AngryMarks.com and listen to Peter H. every single day. I'm sorry?
And my Twitter, @HardcoreCBN.
And then you have the Twitter, where you can keep up with all of his content, which you just heard there. So check him out. He's Peter H. He's a Canadian, and he likes the Toronto Maple Leafs. Until next time, everybody, this is Benjamin Naeem signing off. I'm using my professional name for this podcast here. We're going to sign off for now. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to check out the Stanley Cup Finals. It's going to be an entertaining series, no matter who you're rooting for. This is the best time of year to be a hockey fan. I love you all, and have a wonderful week, everybody.